This week in Agribusiness, serving America's most essential industry with agriculture broadcasters Orion Samuelson and Max Armstrong, and featuring agriculture meteorologist Greg Solier. This week in Agribusiness is brought to you by Case IH and your local Case IH dealer.
Farmers are preparing to gather in New Orleans for the 2022 Commodity Classic. Hello, folks. Welcome to This Week in Agribusiness. I'm Mike Pearson in the studio this week, and we are going to be talking about Commodity Classic coming up next week in New Orleans. But first, there is continued unrest in Europe. Bill Biederman is a partner with agmarket.net. And Bill, as we think about this Russian invasion of Ukraine, it has upended things on the global scale. What are some of the immediate largest responses you've seen with regard to the Russian invasion?
Well, regarding agriculture, the biggest concern is getting ships out of the Black Sea, and that's obviously become a problem. There's been 4 ships. One has actually sunk this morning, and earlier in the week, 3 others were hit. So that's a problem. Ships are not being let out of the Black Sea, even if they're unloaded. So that's tying up a lot of equipment. There's a significant amount of inventory that gets shipped out of there. 30% of all the wheat exports come from the Black Sea, and 17% of the corn come from the Ukraine and Russia. So this is a significant amount of inventory that's being withheld. I like to put it in these terms, Mike. If all of a sudden I told you that 30% of the world's corn production was wiped out because of a drought, what would happen to the market? That's a pretty sensational way of saying it, because that's kind of like the 2x4 on the side of the head. Reality is the inventory is still there. It's kind of like back in the 80s when we had the emergency reserve program. The inventory was still there, but it was not available to the marketplace. So this is a non-available supply at this point. How the market trades that, it can rally because it needs it, but I think if it rallies too crazy, I'm believing that the West could do a black swan for in our industry and say it's okay to ship food. Anything food related, we won't sanction. Well, that could be an outcome that we see. We don't know what the outcomes will be, but that's one of them. But that is the main factor that's being traded right now. I mean, a vessel right now is $200,000 just to get one in there. Wow. So all the exports are coming to us. But The second thing, Mike, is going to be, how are they going to plant a crop? I mean, Dad went to the city to fight. He left Grandpa and Mom and the 8-year-old at the farm. Are they going to get it planted? And are they going to be able to get the chemicals? I mean, the supply problems there are way worse than they are here. And now the railroads, the bridges, a lot of supply problems. We don't know what all the problems are, but we do know that they're short on oilseed seed, they're short on chemicals, and I don't know about the fertilizer. But we're guessing that if Grandpa's in charge, he'll probably say, screw it, I'm not going to plant it because you're not going to confiscate my bin at the end of the year. So right now, the big question is, what percentage of the crop will get planted?
And you mentioned the lack of availability, Bill. That's both due, of course, to the war and literally the physical obstructions in getting grain moved, but it's also due to sanctions. We've seen the Western world come together with fairly strong sanctions. Do you think these are going to have an impact on the Russian economy?
Yeah, I do, but there's 2 parts to that answer, Mike. One part is what I would call the private sector or the non-Putin sector, like the banking system. The corporate system is going to get hurt really bad. In fact, we've already heard of some bankruptcy filings being made. And the banks are going to get hit real hard. Not all the banks are being sanctioned, though. It's the big, large banks that are. But as far as having an impact on Putin himself, the Russian government is in the least amount of debt. Out of 170 countries or 76 countries, they're ranked like number 8 as far as being out of debt. So they have a lot of equity position. Compared to the United States, I think we're ranked 128th in debt to GDP ratios. So he's not going to be affected by this for a while. Eventually he will, probably more because all the corporations and banks that he's surrounded with are going to put pressure on him. So that'll probably be the biggest impact.
All right, and we will see that play out here over the coming weeks and months as these tensions continue. Bill Biederman, partner at agmarket.net, thanks for joining us this week.
Thank you.
This portion of This Week in Agribusiness is brought to you by Firestone Ag. Harvey Firestone invented the first pneumatic farm tire, forever changing what it means to farm hard. Visit firestoneag.com to learn more about this history and tire solutions for today. We're talking markets, and joining us this week to discuss the volatility present in the ag commodities is Angie Setzer. She's a co-founder and partner at Consus. And Angie, have you ever traded volatility like we've seen here in recent weeks?
No, I mean, it harkens back a little bit to 07, 08, and maybe it's bringing back some of these deep-seated traumas from 2012 into 2013, but I would definitely say this is the most amazing week that I think anyone has seen. And honestly, if you look at the Bloomberg Commodity Index and some of those things, like this week is the biggest week since 1960 in commodity market structures when it comes to gains and volatility and things of that nature. So there aren't a lot of us that could say, yeah, I've seen this before. This is totally old hat. I know exactly what to do. I mean, it is something that is completely unprecedented, and I hope we never experience it again, honestly.
Yeah, but it is creating some opportunities out there, particularly in the ag commodities. These rallies have been something else. Angie, you mentioned it might be bringing up some of those traumas from 2012, 2013. As folks are preparing to market their 2022 corn, Angie, what do they need to be thinking about on the cash side with such volatility in the markets?
I think the biggest thing for 22-23 corn is just recognizing where your actual cost structure is baseline and recognize where your price floor is at, via crop insurance or other risk management tools that you have. I think one of the biggest things we tend to get caught up in these types of market moves is the emotion and the desire to really kind of control the situation, where potentially, you're not necessarily researching the decision that you're making as it portrays or as it affects your market or your operation. You're just kind of making decisions based on, okay, I got this text message suggesting I sell more corn, or I got this text message suggesting that I buy more puts. You're not necessarily aware of where your entire operation stands from a marketing plan approach and things of that nature. So you're just kind of throwing stuff at the wall to see what sticks. And I think that's the biggest mistake, that we make and that we made in the run up prior. You get so worried that you're going to miss the downturn that you get overwhelmed and maybe even forget to make those incremental sales or something of that nature. And so it's really one of those market structures where we could sit here and easily rationalize a significant move to the high side to absolute all-time highs in corn, maybe wheat and soybeans aren't out of the woods yet with everything that's going on with vegetable oils across the globe and things of that nature. So there are a lot of ways that we could see that, but there's also a lot of ways that we could see a pretty swift transition in the sense that, the most bearish piece of information is the last bullish one. And so that's our worry every day when we come in, right? Like, when does this thing turn and how are we protected against it doing that? But at the same time, making sure that you don't do too much to where you're completely limited in what you can do if the market continues to run. So it really is Schrodinger's marketing plan, right? Like, you have one, but you really don't have one because we have no idea what's going to happen. But we really have to kind of bring that emotion in and start making educated decisions about the way that we're going to approach the market and know where you're standing, like I said, from a revenue floor, from a safety net sort of standpoint, and where you're at from a current sales percentage. Yeah,
this is definitely a year where managing that bottom line, particularly when inputs are as volatile as they have been as well. Folks, we will be back for more with Angie Setzer from Consus. We're discussing the recent market volatility with Angie Setzer of Consus. And Angie, for producers who have been making cash grain sales, they've been trying to manage that risk in the wheat market. With the volatility, have we learned anything here over the past couple months?
We have not learned a thing, but I'm looking forward to what there is to learn here in another 3 to 4 months. I mean, I think the biggest thing that we've seen in this market structure is we thought that we had priced in a lot of the risk that came with a potential Russian invasion, but I don't think any of us had anticipated a Russian invasion to the extent of which we're seeing. And so, yeah, I mean, the biggest thing that we've learned, I guess, is in the last 2 years now, is always expect the unexpected. I think is really the only thing that we can take from this, is that it's going to continue to get more volatile. Times are going to continue to get more interesting. So I think the biggest thing is we just always have to expect that unexpected.
Absolutely. Angie, for wheat producers, this is a very interesting market structure. As you've mentioned, it's not one we've seen very often. How should growers be looking at it as they're anticipating the wheat crop coming ahead?
I think the biggest thing is to recognize, how your crop looks. Like, make sure we're not counting our chickens before they hatch in wheat, especially if you were in an area like we are here in Michigan, where a lot of the crop went in late. Typically at this point in time, we would probably be far more aggressive in our percentage versus where we're sitting right now, simply because of the fact that we don't know what we're going to see from a yield standpoint, or how this wheat's going to come out of dormancy this spring. And so I think, typically you'd be like, oh, well, we always see carry develop in the market structure. So if you're a little oversold on wheat, no big deal. This year, that's not the case currently. And so I think you really want to be careful and recognize that there is a risk that, if you do oversell wheat at $10 and try to kick it ahead, you could be looking at a pretty substantial inverse. Now, of course, $10 wheat with even a $2 inverse is not absolutely terrible. But if we see this market stay supported, if we see a potential of Russia, not producing, if Ukraine is unable to fertilize and harvest their crop because this thing lasts into summer, you may regret being overly aggressive in sales pace. So just make sure that you're taking advantage, but you're also really careful not to get overly contracted. Options, unfortunately, at this point in time, wheat are so incredibly expensive. I'm not 100% sure if they pencil.
Yeah.
But make sure that you're not getting overzealous in the sense that we're selling 100% of the crop or 120% of expected production or something of that nature. I think that's the biggest thing.
Yeah.
But beyond that, if you haven't been selling, the absolute high in front month Chicago wheat was around $13.30, I believe, in 2008. And so kind of keep that in mind, that things could continue to get interesting, but you want to take a little bit off the plate as it's passed around, but just make sure, especially with wheat, we don't bet too awful hard on what we think we'll have, especially, again, expect the unexpected.
That's true. Pigs get fed, Angie, hogs get slaughtered. Let's talk the soybean market here. We've seen, again, incredible price rallies. What do you anticipate coming out of Brazil?
I think we're going to find that the Brazilian, I'm of the mindset, at least what I'm hearing from folks in that neck of the woods or down that way that are trading that market, is that the crop size should stop getting smaller. We did see some weather come in that should be supportive. Argentina looks as though they will work through the rest of March and be able to finish that crop. They're actually now talking about concerns that they may struggle with harvest because it'll be too wet. So I think what really leads the soybean market at this point in time now becomes vegetable oils, palm oil, sunflower oil, soy oil. And it used to be the old adage, never trust an oil-led rally in soybeans, but that's not the case anymore. Renewable diesel, sustainable aviation fuel, things of that nature are really going to underpin the soy oil market. And so I think you're going to see soybeans supported just on the idea that we see a continuation of increased demand. And really, we'll probably stay supported in soybeans. I mean, you got to recognize the fact that we went from burdensome to maybe not enough.
Yeah.
And so that reduction was huge. And so the market's going to stay supported for a while until we ensure what the U.S. producer is going to plant.
Time will tell. Angie Setzer of Consus, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Chad Colby's look at agriculture technology comes your way next, brought to you by the IBM Watson Decision Platform, combining AI with Internet of Things data to help agribusiness increase yields, improve quality, and drive sustainability.
This past week, a warm front crossed over the Corn Belt, and in my travels, I saw a lot of planters outside of shops getting tuned up, ready for spring, which means that a lot of those planters and a lot of that equipment is going to be on the road here shortly. It's important to be safe, and Chad Colby has some new technology that might help us do just that.
Are you involved with helping moving equipment down the road? If you are, you might really like this tech segment. Recently, I purchased a Wellen Mini light bar. They make this in 3 sizes. This is the middle size. They make it an 11, a 16-inch, and a 23. I opted for the 16-inch model. As you can see, it's got a magnetic mount, which was super easy to assemble. And as far as powering up this unit, you just plug it into the power source in your truck. It's got a simple on and off switch, and then that second switch is to toggle through all the modes that this thing can flash. Now this has 8 LED modules. You'll see them right here as I clip this on the roof of my truck. I would add, if I was going to do this a lot, I think I would opt for some rubber grommets to protect those magnets on the roof of my truck. This also can easily be permanent mounted if you've got a headache rack or even a utility box on the back of your truck, someplace to mount it permanently. As far as functionality goes, it's pretty slick. And as you can see, it's super bright. Once I plugged it in, I was kind of testing out those modes just to get an idea of what it looked like. I actually had some big construction equipment to escort, and the trucking company kind of requested that I had a light bar. He did remind me, make sure not to buy any with any white lights because DOT does not like that. You can see his semi, it's got a full-length light bar, and that thing is super bright. Now, this worked great during the daytime, don't get me wrong, but at night, this thing is super obnoxious. You can see my pickup truck with the 4-way lights on. That does an okay job, but when you turn that light bar on, it is a whole nother league of making your vehicle aware as far as from a brightness standpoint to get people's attention, to get people to slow down. And I've used it several times and it works really good. I'm glad I opted for the 16-inch model. I thought the other one was maybe just a little bit obnoxious. I like this size also because it easily stores underneath the seat of my pickup. So as you're starting to get ready for spring and you're working on your equipment, don't forget to check out those lights, make sure your turn signals work, and if you have to escort equipment, consider one of these light bars. It's definitely well worth the investment. For This Week in Agribusiness, I'm Chad Colby.
Thank you, Chad. It's incredible to me just how much brightness is coming from those new LEDs versus the old incandescents. We'll have more coverage of agriculture on This Week in Agribusiness. One of the most important things folks in ag can do is talk to people outside of our industry about what it is that we do on the farm. One way we do that is with National Agriculture Day.
Mike, it's just a little more than 2 weeks away, the annual observance of National Agriculture Day. We're looking forward to it. Back again in Washington, D.C. The chair of the Agriculture Council of America, the Ag Day chair this year, is Amy Bradford. She's with the cooperative Growmark, headquartered right in the heart of the Midwest. Amy, it's good to have you join us this weekend. It's closing in on us, isn't it?
Yes, it is. You know, you hit March 1st and the weather starts to break a little bit in the Midwest, and it really is an exciting time. And we really look forward to Ag Day this year, March 22nd in DC.
It's always right that first week of spring, and it seems to make a lot of sense holding at that particular time. But this year is a little bit different simply because there'll be equipment on display in the nation's capital. Talk with us about that.
Right. What we have planned is on the mall, we're going to have equipment spaced out throughout the mall and invite residents of DC and others who are in the capital those 2 days, 21st and 22nd of March, the opportunity to come and see how agriculture really gets it done. It'll be everything from tractors and combines to other heavy equipment that is used in agriculture and some of the other industries associated with Ag Day. So we're really excited to be able to showcase agriculture on the mall in the nation's capital.
It's a wide variety of groups represented there, as I understand, not just agriculture equipment companies, but associations of farmers too.
Right. And that's one of the things that it's really a collective effort. It is government, it is equipment manufacturers, it is associations like Farm Bureau and Corn Growers and Soybean Association, cooperatives like Growmark and CHS, Tennessee Farmers, Land O'Lakes, just a variety of participants who all come together to recognize the contributions that agriculture makes to our everyday lives.
Just to clarify, we're not talking about 4 or 5 or 6 companies or displays. Am I correct that they're probably close to 30?
Yes, that is exactly correct. And we are so excited that we have that breadth of display to be on the mall there on the 21st and 22nd of March. We're just so excited to be able to do this in person again. We've done it virtually for a couple of years, and we will have a virtual component as well. But we want to invite everybody out to DC, to the mall, to see all the equipment and everything that agriculture has to offer.
What is Ag Day about? As it's held every year, what is the goal behind National Agriculture Day?
It is to recognize the contributions of American agriculture to our everyday lives. And if you think about it, agriculture touches just every part of our lives, from the food we eat to the clothes we wear to how we fuel our vehicles. And across the board, there are just so many things that agriculture makes a contribution to, that we want to make sure that they understand where their food comes from, like where their soy candles come from, where their cosmetics come from for women. And it's just a day to come together and recognize that contribution and help consumers understand the breadth and the depth of the agriculture industry in their lives.
Agriculture Day is observed across the country in a variety of ways. I know that shopping malls, for example, supermarkets, schools, you do have some guidance, do you not, on the Agriculture Day website about things that can be done locally?
Yes, that's right. We have a whole toolkit if you want to have an Ag Day activity in your local community or collaborate with other organizations to put something on. I know that there's a lot that goes on during Agriculture Week and Ag Day for Ag in the Classroom curricula that is taught to help our students understand about agriculture and the role in society. But yes, there's a whole toolkit if you want to have your own event. It shows exactly how to do that, gives you a checklist, and really provides you with the resources to do something locally.
It sounds like the national observance will be special, and there'll be so much going on locally. Let's mention once more the 2 dates for the display on the mall in Washington. It'll be on both Monday and Tuesday of that week, correct?
Right, March 21 and 22. And we will be getting more information out in terms of times that people will be available, staff at the exhibits. But those 2 days, there will be equipment on the mall and representatives from each of those areas that can come and talk to consumers about agriculture. We are just so excited for that. And we're praying that the weather holds up. You never know in springtime what it's gonna be like, but we're praying for beautiful weather on the mall in DC.
Check that website, agday.org, for more information, for updates. It'll be right there, correct?
Yes, that's true. And there's even there's promotional material there for social media posts. If you want to share information on your social channels, there is something there for you to do that, as well as the toolkit for local activities.
Amy, thank you for the time you've spent with us and for calling attention to Ag Day. It's coming up soon, National Agriculture Day, with all of the activities. Now, the day itself is the 22nd, right? That's Ag Day.
Correct. That is Ag Day. And we're hoping that we will have Secretary Vilsack there signing a proclamation recognizing Ag Day throughout the nation. So we invite everybody to come down.
Thank you so much. We appreciate it, Amy. Take care.
Thank you. You too.
There you go, Mike. All of the details on National Agriculture Day. It's coming up soon. Our thanks to Amy Bradford with the Growmark Cooperative.
It will be quite a sight to see all of that equipment on the Washington Mall. Get all the details at their website, agday.org.
This Week in Agribusiness, serving America's most essential industry, is brought to you by Case IH.
Thanks for tuning in to This Week in Agribusiness. Across the country, restrictions for COVID are coming off, and as such, ag meetings are growing. More and more farmers are getting out, getting together, and talking to each other, and they'll have an opportunity again very soon.
Mike, just ahead this next week, Commodity Classic back in action as the growers will get together in New Orleans. Here to visit with us about that is Vice President of Communications for the National Corn Growers Association, Neil Caskey. Neil, it's exciting, isn't it?
It's very exciting, Max. After a year of being apart, we're thrilled to be back together in New Orleans for what's shaping up to be one heck of a Commodity Classic in 2022.
A big part of that is the organizational meetings, and your members of the NCGA will be coming together. They have some things to talk about, no doubt.
We do. And so this is where we get together as the National Corn Growers Association to set our policy direction for the year.
So there is some heavy lifting that goes on by your organization leadership and the leaders of those other organizations, in addition to a great trade show that is held every year.
Wonderful trade show. I mean, this is Commodity Classic is where the best growers come to get better and prepare for the upcoming season. And so our trade show is almost sold out. We have over 400 firms and organizations that are exhibiting this year. And so if you're looking to expand your operation and learn a little bit more about just how to farm and different ways to go about it, Commodity Classic is the place for you.
Neil, am I correct also that there are various informational opportunities away from the trade show? The opportunity to sit in and listen to some of the businesses that sell to farmers, or perhaps maybe some university experts who are coming in there too?
Absolutely. And so, I mean, educational opportunities that's the cornerstone of all things Commodity Classic, a real strength of ours. And right now we have over 50 educational sessions. So if you're a grower that's looking to learn a little bit more about whether that's sustainable production or carbon markets or trade or biofuels, whatever you're interested in, I can all but guarantee that we're going to have a session at Commodity Classic that will allow them to learn a little bit more.
At times in the past, I've been surprised at the geography of farmers that I meet coming into Commodity Classic. It's wider than you might expect. It's not just the heart of the country, is it?
It's not. And we have growers coming from all parts of the U.S. and some that even come in from overseas as well. And so Classic, it's an international brand. And so we're proud of what we built. And we know that the show in New Orleans is gonna surpass all expectations.
Those of us who have long covered the National Corn Growers Association can recall when the meeting was held in a hotel in Peoria, Illinois. I think there might have been a couple hundred people there. It's really been interesting to see the growth as these organizations have come together and the kind of event that has been fostered from it.
Well, yeah, we're proud of that partnership that we've developed with starting off with the American Soybean Association and expanding from there. You know, we went from a couple hundred to several thousand. And that's a real credit to our growers, first and foremost, obviously the associations, our exhibitors, and just the quality of content. Our educational opportunities are really unmatched in just the trade show, the agricultural trade show space. And I think that growth really is a testament to that.
Neil, we appreciate your sharing a couple of comments with us here. We look forward to seeing you at Commodity Classic.
Thanks, Max.
Neil Caskey, Vice President of Communications with the National Corn Growers Association.
Thank you, Max. Excitement is building for Commodity Classic. That's March 10th, 11th, and 12th. And it was recently announced that masks will not be required on the convention center floor. There are still requirements throughout the city, and you must bring proof that you are fully vaccinated or have a negative COVID test 72 hours prior to arrival.
Greg Solier now brings us his farm weather forecast for the week ahead, presented by Pivot Bio Proven 40. Predictable, productive, weatherproof. Turn to a better nitrogen. Turn to Pivot Bio Proven 40. Learn more at pivotbio.com.
Well, it's time to take a look at weather. And to do that, Greg Solier, our meteorologist, joins us in the studio. And Greg, at the Pacific Northwest, what are you watching for in this upcoming week?
Now, some drier weather, would you believe, into the western reaches of Washington State and Oregon. It has been a pretty busy winter season out there moisture-wise. Had some stream and river flooding issues over the past week. It's more of a ridge up aloft, and the flow is basically stronger as it gets into this part of the country, so no significant moisture makers. It's not a real onshore flow, so some dry time into these western areas of Washington and Oregon. You go into Northern California, they've had some spells of wet weather this wintertime season as well. About 2.5, almost 3 inches at Eureka. You get farther south into the Golden State and forget about it. Here's some cold air laying out across areas of the northern and central high plains, and colder air is on the move, and the upslope flow, you know how that works. That means some meaningful snowfall in this particular part of the country, and a rare winter weather system. We had one over the past couple of days. It's back into play for the western Dakotas, the northern and central high plains, all that snow cover and snowpack and winter storm. This has basically been here and into the Red River Valley of the north over the wintertime season. And the cold, while it is, at least won't be that barbaric stuff as we see it right now. Into the southwestern part of the country, kind of a trough moving through the desert southwest, the Four Corners area. There is a push of colder air into this part of the country, and a couple of weather systems will get kicked out as well. Look at a couple of thunderstorm chances into West Texas. The warmth is abating off those 80-degree readings. Great with outdoor work, not great with dryness and drought in mind. It'll rain snow into Nebraska. Not much going on at all into the central and southern valleys of California. You get into Fresno and San Jose, not even a 1/10 of an inch of rain since the beginning part of January. Some southwestern snow will take that, some central and southern high plains snow as well, and some outbreaks of showers and thunderstorms into the Red River Valley of the south with a drop in temperatures later in the week.
Well, Greg, those temperatures were mild across the Corn Belt this past week, but it sounds like winter's coming back.
The other boot and or hoof is going to drop, as we say. Remember, we talk about La Nina, and it usually means an extended, protracted, late arriving winter and a delayed spring, and someone's going to get hammered with cold and wet. We think into the growing and planting season, it's here. And speaking of cold and wet, there's some rain changing to snow in this particular weather system. Cold air is back into play. Southern Canadian Prairie, you were down 25 below last week in this part of the country, as opposed to the 70 to 80 degree warmth and record-setting warmth here across the plains and western Corn Belt. It is a shockaroo to the system, that even worse as the week wears on. There's more cold air for the Dakotas. This cold front has rain ahead of it, snow behind it in the same areas that were up there in that record-setting territory, so keep an eye on it from a livestock perspective as the week wears on. And moisture, too, into the drought areas of Oklahoma, Texas, but it'll come at a price probably heavy and severe with this weather system and cold front, and that cold front will strengthen. A couple of lows will track along it, and it will be slow going if you're heading to Commodity Classic, with a couple of downpours of showers and thunderstorms in the middle and late parts of the week down into the Mississippi Delta.
Does that rain move all the way to the East Coast, Greg, next week?
With time, at least, it will get into the eastern Corn Belt locales. Of course, ahead of this weather system here, mild environs, some rain to start. The rain changes to snow. St. Lawrence down into parts of the southern Great Lakes region as cold air lays on out. We'll get another disturbance to kind of track up as these jet stream winds come in southwest and northeast. Again, another round of meaningful moisture for the Canadian Prairie eastern areas and through the northern Great Lakes region as well. That will be snow, and the snow and rain could be a problem with livestock operations and footing into the western Corn Belt late portion of the week. Beautiful spring, almost summer-like weather over the southeastern part of the country. A couple of rain showers in through Florida. Yeah, those pasture lands are hurting. Watch this low and cold front slow to move. That means multiple rounds of showers and thunderstorms. Tennessee Valley flooding there, and more severe weather back into East Texas as well later in the week.
Greg Solier is back with his extended farm weather forecast for the country, presented by Pivot BioProven 40. Predictable, productive, weatherproof. Turn to a better nitrogen. Turn to Pivot BioProven 40. Learn more at pivotbio.com.
And we're back talking weather with Greg Solier. Greg, you mentioned some of the moisture that's going to be falling over this next week. Who's going to see the most of it?
Most of it, unfortunately, focused into the Ohio Valley and the Tennessee Valley. They are waterlogged streams and rivers at and better than Bankville, in particular, this part of the country. And there's probably some additional ice jamming effects going on into parts of the Ohio Valley as well, with another 1 inch of rainfall expected. So watch the flooding and severe mid-Atlantic region into the southeastern part of the country. So some drought relief, at least it's rain, not snow or ice like we had a couple of weeks ago. And there's still lots of winter on the maximum charts, including some snowfall. Northern and western Corn Belt, Great Lakes region, back into parts of the southwestern high plains, up along and west of the divide, and 1/4 to 1/2 inch into northern California, the Pacific Northwest. No significant drought relief in this part of the country, but it will kind of add some snow cover to it there, Mike, as the week wears on.
Well, Greg, what do you see for temperatures on the week of March 14th?
Yeah, boy, I tell you, we astronomically speaking, clock into springtime here, 10:23 in the central time zone. This is not the look of springtime. It's a mid to late winter look and feel here. And note the range of temperatures from the cold to the warmth here, the warmth over the eastern seaboard. The jet stream swung out here across the central part of the country. That means it's a busy weather pattern. Systems are weak into the Pacific West. They energize over the southern plains, kick out into the St. Lawrence River Valley. So probably some mid to late season snows here. Wet weather will be appreciated over the mid-Atlantic region. And they need more rain as well, Mike, down through Florida. Drought continues to expand there.
That first week of spring, Greg, do temps get any more spring-like?
Not really. You know, there's a slight eastward jog, the cold air, the worst of it, and still sub-zero, we think, at night. There's a lot of snow cover, Canadian Prairie, northern Great Lakes region, and a propensity for some of the cool to cold air to work down into the Tennessee Valley, into the mid-Atlantic region. The warmth getting suppressed back through the Rio Grande Valley, that is, into the central and southern valleys of California. And there, hardly a drop of rain. Yeah, that month of December was a misnomer. La Nina's mean expanding dryness and drought in the western and southern parts of the country, especially here and through Texas as well. Look at the active weather pattern. Ohio Valley, Tennessee Valley again into the northern Great Lakes region. Some drought relief. We'll take it's probably snowfall for the northern plains and back through Big Sky country.
Greg, the week of March 28th takes us into April. Does it start feeling more spring-like then?
And I probably presume a little northward advance in some of the field work which is getting going over the southern part of the country. Well, where there won't be much warming of soils, I suspect, except over this part of the country. That's okay, I suspect. Back to normal temperatures over much of the Corn Belt, Central Plains into the Pacific West. The cold air easing up a little bit, moving back into the Canadian Prairie. But really, I think this is going to be the story, this back and forth in this part of the country, the cold air as we get deeper into spring and probably early summer as well. That does not bode well from a field work and planning standpoint. Delays probably into the Tennessee Valley, mid-Atlantic region. Some late season snowfall for parts of the Dakotas, the Great Lakes region, into the Northeast and New England. High and dry West Texas, southwestern part of the country, Pacific Northwest. But a busy storm track, including, as you would expect, severe weather over the southern United States.
Next on This Week in Agribusiness, it's Max's Tractor Shed, spotlighting another great American tractor.
Well, I probably should have consulted with Greg Solier before doing this, but we're going to bid farewell to heat houser season in Max's Tractor Shed. Brought to you by Store Lock Tool Cabinets. Once you make the investment into one of those superior cabinets, you'll not only make your shop look better, more orderly, but you will upgrade the functionality of your shop too. You'll know where your stuff is. Go to their website, check out Store Lock Tool Cabinets, then give them a call. Their website is storelock.com. One farmer told me the other day when we were at the Louisville Farm Show, he said, like clockwork every year, I put on the heat houser in November and I don't take it off until April. Well, maybe some of these can come off now as temperatures start to warm around the country. Let's look at 4 of them here. Baraboo, Wisconsin is where Billy Turner has a heat houser on his Farmall 560 diesel. Actually, there may be one on the other 560 there as well. And Jim Cratley at Montgomery City, Missouri has a Ford that he puts his heat houser on every winter. Actually, it was made for a John Deere, but he's been able to adapt it to his Ford tractor. Rick Wilson moves some snow every winter in central Illinois with his IH Cub 104. Hopefully he can peel that off here in a few days at Mahomet, Illinois. And at German Valley, Illinois, Luke Miller has a Minneapolis Moline that he equips with a heat houser every winter. It's a U302. Once again, it wasn't made for that tractor. It was made for a Ford. But he's improvised to make it fit his Minneapolis Moline in northern Illinois. Let's see what's selling in the week ahead at Big Iron Auctions. Here's Mark Stock with his weekly report.
Well, hello, Max. Super high prices continue on BigIron.com. A 2014 J&M seed tender sold for $32,500, originally purchased for $25,000, and a new 2022 MacDon Draper head you can buy for $90,000, and a 2019 just sold on Big Iron for $89,000. So the value is there, folks, if you have equipment to sell. And Paulman Farms is retiring from Sutherland, Nebraska, and they've got 123 items selling on BigIron.com, including a 2000 2015 John Deere S680 combine. They have a 1976 Chevrolet Scottsdale 10 4x4 step-side short box pickup that will sell as well. There's a 2015 Kenworth T800 semi-truck tractor and a 2013 Tempty Ag Hopper grain trailer selling on their retirement sale. Plus a 1993 John Deere 4250 Power Shift with only 5,121 hours. Also selling a 2015 Versa Bagger Mobile King self-propelled forage bagger located in Wisconsin. Johnny Herman is retiring from Cimarron, Kansas. Vernon C. Bond is retiring from Dwight, Kansas. Over 30 retirement sales on BigIron.com in the month of March. Check out the quality equipment that will sell with no reserve.
Well, we here at This Week in Agribusiness are always proud to get to know FFAers across the country. And this week, we're meeting Aubrey Schwartz. She's the state secretary for Ohio FFA this school year. And Aubrey, what are you looking forward to the most with the remainder of this 2022 school year?
I think one thing that all of my teammates and everyone in FFA is looking forward to is state convention. We're there in May, the first Thursday and Friday, and it's really the first convention that we've had in 2 years. So I think everyone's ready to get together and celebrate, and that's one major thing that I've looked forward to the whole year, and I'm really excited that it's almost here.
Yes, it's very exciting. A lot of pent-up energy to get together and reconnect with other FFAers from across the state. And Aubrey, what was it about FFA that prompted you to get involved in the first place?
Really, I never had an interest in FFA, I really thought, but my older sister did it her senior year of high school, and my parents were just like, oh, go ahead and do it for the scholarships, you'll like it, whatever. But really, I stayed in FFA my freshman year because of all the people and the relationships I made. The awards and the events and the contests, those all just came with it, but really the people are what made the organization what it is and what really keeps me today, and that's probably my best part about being a state officer this year is really the relationships I have with the members and the people and the teachers and just all the different people that I get to meet. That's the best part of our organization, is those relationships.
Aubrey, have you been able now to get around to most of your districts in person and have that connection with the members?
Yes, so I haven't done anything virtually, any virtual chapter visits. I've had all in person so far.
All right, and what does the future hold for you?
So I'm studying agricultural education here at Wilmington College. That's the plan right now. I'm not quite sure where that's going to lead me. Near future, I'm going to be working at FFA camp this summer as a staffer. So that'll be exciting to spend another summer at camp. But Ag Ed is the pathway right now.
Well, we wish you the best of luck. Aubrey Schwartz, State Secretary for Ohio FFA.
Now, Samuelson Says. Insight and commentary from Orion Samuelson.
Ukraine has been in the news on a daily basis for the past several weeks, and I'm beginning to hear from many of you wondering what's so important about Ukraine. Well, first of all, I might say that the people of Ukraine are doing what the colonists of America did in the 1700s, fighting for their freedom and their independence. But there are other reasons. Ukraine is important agriculturally. The second largest country in Europe by area, it has a population of over 40 million people. That's more than Poland. But why is Ukraine an important agricultural country? Well, they're ranked first in Europe in terms of arable land area, third place in the world by the area of black soil, first place in the world in exports of sunflower and sunflower oil, second place in the world in barley production, fourth place in barley exports, third largest producer and the fourth largest exporter of corn in the world, fourth largest producer of potatoes, fifth largest rye producer in the world, eighth place in the world in wheat exports, and ninth place in the world in the production of chicken eggs, and 16th place in the world in cheese exports. Ukraine is important agriculturally, particularly to the countries around it in Europe. And that's why it's important that the Ukrainian people win their independence and their rights to do what they want to do in their part of the world from countries like Russia. Support Ukraine. Be safe, be well. My thoughts on Samuelson Says.
As Greg Sollier's mentioned on the show in the past, March 1st is the start of meteorological spring. Well, spring is also the time for calving season for a lot of folks across the country, and this past week saw social media with a lot of very cute baby calf pictures. Max, of course, was spending time on Twitter. He found several of these posts to show us how calving looks across the country. We got an update here from South Dakota. Robbie Hines says Molly Beth got her first look at cattle. It's always something when you see kids really see cattle for the first time. This one's from Oklahoma. Barry Edwards says, this is the way I love to find them. That mama giving birth unassisted on her own and that calf looking healthy. Luke Perry down in Kansas says he's celebrating twin bull calves on the farm. That's always fun when you get that little extra rebate. And our friend Joe Gill up at KASM Radio in Albany, Minnesota says, I guess he's still hungry. That calf needs a little iron in his diet, it looks like. Lowlife Loper in New Mexico shared this picture. This calf up there must have just had a tasty meal. He's blowing some milk bubbles. And finally, Brian Hare there in Pennsylvania notes that his calf has found the barn. Folks, if you've got pictures of interesting and cute things happening on your farm, find us. You can see Max on Twitter at Max Armstrong, and I'm at Pearson Cattle. Be sure to join us next week, same time, same place, right here for This Week in Agribusiness.
Closed captioning for This Week in Agribusiness is brought to you by Kubota. Shape your world. This Week in Agribusiness is brought to you by Case IH. This Week in Agribusiness is produced by Omax Communication in association with 22 Creative Group. We invite you to visit us online at agbizweek.com.